In today's tutorials, we'll be learning some common mistakes we sometimes do or overlook in Microsoft Excel. And you can always feel free to jump to anything in particular you would like to know in today's tutorials by checking out my timestamp in the description section. Well, be always sure to hit the like and subscribe button and push the notification to always be the first to know when my video drops. So without wasting my time, let's delve right into it. Well, the first mistake we sometimes make or overlook is, whilst we know what a cell or a range is, we sometimes forget one thing or become complacent. And what is that? Well, did you know that even your cell, you can rename it? Well, why is it necessary to even know this information? Well, it becomes necessary when you have multiple sheets and you want to keep on referencing the same data in a single sheet. So let's say we have a name here. Let's simply type Akwasi and simply press enter, and you want to reference this very name in multiple sheets. So whilst a simpler way is to simply come to the very next sheet, hit the equal sign, then come to the sheet where your name is and simply hit the enter, then reference it. It becomes simpler if you just rename this cell. So let's say you select the cell, the name of the cell is B2. Let's simply rename this cell to, let's say, Akwasi. We can simply rename it and hit enter. So anytime we come to a different sheet and simply hit the equal sign and type in Akwasi, just like a function, it appears over here. You hit the tab key and simply press enter. Then your referencing will be done. So rather than moving in between sheets and referencing it one by one, you can simply use it as a function, then move on. And you can do same for a range also. So let's say you want to reference this also in multiple sheets. You can simply select the entire range, right? Come to the name box over here and simply change the name. So let's simply rename this to, let's say, reference or ref, and simply hit enter. So if you want to reference it in separate sheet, all we need to do, just like a function, bring in the equal sign, type in ref, it will appear over here, and you simply hit the tab key and press enter. Then your referencing will simply be done for you over here. No worries, in case there is a change in the original data input, it affects your output, so there is no need to worry about that. Well, did you know about this? So moving on, the next mistake we sometimes overlook in Microsoft Excel is all about referencing. And in Microsoft Excel, you probably will be referencing about more than 85% of the time. So knowing when to reference is very essential. And why is it a mistake? Well, it becomes a mistake when you don't know when to use the relative referencing, the absolute, or even the mixed referencing, especially when you are using conditional formatting or when you are using it in functions and formulas. And we will talk about conditional formatting shortly, so kindly look forward to it. And if you like to know more about referencing, you can always check out the link above to know more about it. So when do we use relative referencing? So picking this data as an example, we want to multiply this cell with this cell and this cell with this cell. So here, this is where the relative referencing picks in. So we'll simply select the cell and let's do the basic multiplication to see, hit the enter, and we'll simply drag it down. So over here, this is what we call the relative referencing. So whilst we drag it down, Excel picks up that we want to do the calculation for the next cell below what we've already done. So this is when to use relative referencing. So in absolute referencing, it is when you want one particular cell or range to remain constant. So how do we set this to an absolute? So all you need to do, so let's say you want to multiply this 5 by this 20, all you need to do, bring in the equal sign, simply select this very cell, introduce the multiplication sign, and simply select the cell you want to remain a constant. And here, all you need to do is to simply hit the F4 key, and voila, your cell or your row and column will be locked for you. Hit the enter. Let's simply drag it down to see what will happen. And ooh la la, this is what we call the absolute referencing. So knowing when to use absolute referencing will go in a long way to help you. And the last thing about referencing is the mixed referencing, where here either the row remains constant whilst the column becomes dynamic, or the row becomes dynamic whilst the column remains a constant. So here, let's do a little example. So in the case we want this column to remain a constant whilst the row becomes dynamic over here, or we want this very row to remain, this very column to remain dynamic whilst the row remain constant, all we need to do is to simply introduce the equal sign, select this very cell, and because we want the column to remain a constant, we'll hit the F4 key once both cells or both the column and row locked. This one, the row has been locked. We hit it again. Now we've locked the very column. And now let's introduce the multiplication symbol and select this one. So here we want the column to be dynamic whilst the row remains a constant. So we hit the F4 key once and twice again. So now we've locked the row. So we'll simply hit the enter key and now it will be done. Let's simply drag it down to see what will happen. And voila. So now if you are to pick the values in red, it's multiplying just this single cell over here. So now if you are to drag it down, let's see what happens. Ooh la la. So let's go to the formula bar and see what it is doing now. So it is doing what we call the merge referencing. So as you can see, whilst the column remains a constant here, the row becomes dynamic. And here also, whilst the column is dynamic, the row becomes a constant. So there is another mistake or common practice we sometimes overlook or make in Microsoft Excel when to reference. Well, another common mistake we sometimes make in Microsoft Excel is when you number manually like this. Well, whilst it isn't entirely wrong, what of if you have to number about thousands of rows or columns in Microsoft Excel? Well, that becomes a challenge if you have to do it this way, or you simply type in one, two, then select them. You select them, then you simply drag it down to do the numbering for you. Well, that's too time consuming. You can always leverage on the sequence function to do that for you. So you type in the sequence function, hit the number of rows you want. So let's say you want to number up to 100. All you need to do is to simply hit the enter, the number will be done for you. So the next trick you can use in numbering is to use the sequence and the counter function together. So let's simply do that. And here you don't need to worry about doing any number entry. All you need to do is to simply select the number of cells you want to make the entries into. So let's say you want to, number up to say 1,000 or 100. Let's simply type in 100. It will be selected for you. Let's close parenthesis and hit enter. Then anytime you have to make any entries, then the numbering will be done for you automatically. Easy peasy, right? So moving on, what do you think is the actual difference between these two Excel workbook? So in the very first one, if you have to carefully look or select each and every cell, you don't see anything happening. But if you have to move over here to the very next workbook, there are a whole lot of formulas. If you have to select a cell, you can see formulas over here. But here also, there are no formulas. Well, this is what in Excel we call the data restriction, where you restrict what you want the user to input in. So here, anytime I come here and I try to manipulate any formulas, you can see the cell or chart you are trying to change is on a protected sheet. So to make any changes, all you need to do is to unprotect the sheet. So with the first one, I have restricted what I want the user to do. But the user can come and make any changes over here as he deems fit, as he wants. But here also, let's try here also and see. In the case I want to say, type in anything. So as you can see, I have distorted or manipulated whatever the programmer did over here. So in Excel, one common mistake we make is before rolling out our Excel workbook for our users, we sometimes fail to protect either our cell, hide our formulas, and all those stuff. So if you'd like to know more about how this was done, you can always check out the link above to know more about data validation and hiding your formulas and even functions from your users. Finally, one common mistake we sometimes make or overlook in Microsoft Excel is when doing conditional formatting. And why do I say this? Well, in doing conditional formatting, one thing that really matters is how to reference your conditions. So let's simply select this entire data, go to the conditional formatting, and go to our manage rules. So let's go and edit the rules. So here, if you carefully look at our formula over here or our rule description, what we said was if this very cell is equal to an H, then it has to display this very yellow color. So what we are trying to say is anytime this very cell displays an H, then its color has to change. But if you look at it carefully, we didn't lock any of the rows or columns. Why? This is because we want it to be relative. Why relative? Because we've selected this entire range over here. So we want it to be progressive so that anytime any cell is being typed like that, then this formatting picks up. So now let's simply cancel it. Let's close this one and simply select any cell and simply type in the H. As you can see, it affects it. But what if, let's simply select this entire range again, right? Go to the conditional formatting. Then let's change the rule. Now let's go to the edit and simply change the rule. So let's simply lock only the column. So we'll simply lock the column. Let's simply hit OK. So now let's apply it, hit OK. So now what happens? So now as you can see, everything changes now. So now our conditional formatting has changed. So now the only column that this condition really applies to is this very cell or column C. So anytime we hit an H and press the enter, see what is happening. That isn't entirely right, right? So let's go to the conditional formatting again. Let's go to the manage rules. And now let's change this, or let's edit this row again. So we'll simply select it, hit the F4 key again, and simply hit OK. And let's apply it now and hit OK. So now it simply changes back to how we wanted. Well, if you'd like to know more about how this very tracker came into existence, you can always check the link above to know more about how to create attendance tracker for your office workers and even for schools. I hope this video has been helpful. If it has been, kindly let me know in the comment section. And if there is anything in particular you would like to know in Microsoft Excel, kindly let me know in the comment section also, and I will gladly assist. Thank you so much for your time, and until next time, it's bye for now.